Welcome back, Pokemon trainers, to the Victory Road World, sponsored by Elgato, GG Tour, and Metafy. I am here with the lovely Jamie Boyd, and this time we're going to be showcasing a match, Israel versus El Salvador. Jamie, how you feeling today?
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Luis, I think, might be the youngest competitor in this World Cup at the moment. So it's going to be very exciting to see them go up against all these great players. And it's going to be the manager of Israel is going to be their first opponent coming out here in Dov Joseph. So yeah, we can have a look at how Israel and El Salvador are currently doing against each other. We can see how the matchup is going for Israel and El Salvador. And it seems like El Salvador are victorious again. Once again, they have reached the 5 wins and have taken that first round win.
Yeah, absolutely. But still can't count out this match just yet. Still get a win for their team. And wow, yeah, with Luis being such a young player and starting in 2020 in the pandemic, something that I was thinking about during our break is that the way you have to approach tournaments, in an online setting versus an in-person setting. So much respect for Luis joining us today. And I'm really excited to see the matches that we have here today.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, and Luis is using definitely a tried and true team coming out. We've got the sneak preview in the interim there. You could see that they are going to be running the same team that Gabriel Agati used to get second place at the NAIC. So going to be a very strong team coming out for Luis, and you can see that Dov was running that Dialga as well. So I'm going to be very interested to see that. Two-time national champion coming out for Dov as well. So a very nice accomplishment. And yeah, you can see Luis there played in the World Cup of VGC last year. So may have been the youngest in that tournament as well, and El Salvador managed to make it to the top 16, so that was a top cut for Luis coming out for such a young player as well.
Oh my gosh, that smile can melt anyone. I'm so excited for this match. Yeah, two-time national champion. And let's see these teams. Oh my gosh, there's a Shedinja. Some may be shuddering, some may feel angry seeing one of those guys. Definitely a maybe an evil Pokemon is the word that we can use here. And we also see a Dialga, which, Dialga doesn't get to see that much play. Zacian all over the place, but it's nice to see a bit of a Dialga here. Jamie, initial thoughts on this team preview?
Dialga does very well into opposing Kyogre because it does resist it very well, and somewhat well into the opposing Zacian. If you can just speed control it somehow, whether that's setting your own Trick Room or just getting some Icy Winds or a Tailwind here and there, then you'll be able to most likely knock out the Zacian if you are carrying that Life Orb with just a Max Quake. So it does tend to do very well into this, but the opposing Landorus on Luis's side of the field could be very crucial going up against the Dialga. But then you've got to contend with the opposing Kyogre on Dov's side of the field. So it is going to be a very interesting matchup between these two players. Of course, there is that pesky Shedinja. Like you said, I am one of the people that is shuddering. So we are going to see what Luis has to bring against that opposing Shedinja. It looks like they have at least 4 ways of hitting it. Zacian and Kyogre don't tend to run any moves that can hit Shedinja. So you do need to rely on your partners like this Kartana and Incineroar that is going to be coming out for Luis. And we can see it from Dov's side of the field going to be leading with that Tornadus and the Dialga.
Yeah, absolutely. And yep, there's that Dialga's pressure. Great intonation of the speeds coming out to play. And then we do see the Intimidate come out. Now, Tornadus does add a decent amount of pressure. You have the Taunt, you have the Tailwind options right here. And yeah, with Dialga can have a couple of different options here. You want to know, is this Dialga going to focus on a Trick Room, or if it's going to go very offensive and go for just a straight up Dynamax right here? As you said, Jamie, this Dialga does have a really nice matchup, so Dov will want to utilize it very well against the opponent.
Yeah, it looks like the Dov would probably want to go for the Tailwind route rather than a Trick Room if the Dialga has that, because you don't really want the Tornadus in the Trick Room, unless you're trying to catch a Kartana going for an Airstream, which it very much needs to do if it wants to try and match the speed coming out from this potential Tailwind. You've got the Fake Out pressure from the Incineroar, so if you go for a double up into the Tornadus that is not going for a Protect, you could go for a Fake Out, and probably a Steel Spike would be the only move that would be able to pick up the knockout on the Tornadus. Airstream probably wouldn't do it, but we are seeing a Dynamax coming out from Dov's side of the field, it seems, and that is the Dialga. So unless this is a very slow Kartana, that Kartana is not going for the Dynamax this turn.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dialga's going to put a ton of pressure onto the field right here, and we're about to see who is going to get targeted. And we are going to see a Protect come out from the Tornadus, checking out what's going to happen and protect it on the... We're going to see the Sacred Sword onto the Dialga. Not going to do that much damage despite being super effective thanks to the bulk from that Dynamax. And there's the big Max Quake coming in on that Incineroar. Isn't enough to get the knockout. Unfortunately, it is not, but still doing a huge huge amount of damage right there. We're going to see the Spadef boosts come onto that Dialga, which is not going to be fun. There is the parting shot from Incineroar, and that is going to be great to lower that attack, and allow that Incineroar to pivot and allow one of those back Pokemon to come in.
Yeah, what a strong play coming out from Luis on this turn 1, ignoring the Protect coming out from the Tornadus, catching that very nicely, expecting it to protect from the fake out, and also not going for the Dynamax with Kartana is really smart here. When you're facing down Dialga, you probably want to be stalling out your Dynamax and try and get it to use all of its turns before you go for it yourself, and the Sacred Sword would have been as strong as the Knuckle if the Kartana went for the Dynamax on this turn, and it would be at +1 if it went for the Knuckle, but then it would have also been matching the Dynamax of the opposing Dialga, and you want to be going for your Dynamax as late as possible, so that's a really, really nice turn for Luis, especially getting the drop on the opposing Dialga as well. This means you can just switch out the Tornadus. You don't need to worry about the speed control. In comes the Zacians. Unless you went for Max Quake into the Tornado slot, that is going to be a pretty safe switch in for that Zacian.
Oh, wow, really great positioning happening and pivoting of Pokemon. And now we are going to see the Dynamax come out on Lewis's side, and Lewis is going to have a 1-turn advantage now, having an extra Dynamax turn starting later. And so here, there's Kartana coming out to play very nicely paired with the Zacian right here. And so we are about to see where this Kartana is going to target, and Tornadus is going to go for the taunt. Initially that was another Tornadus slot, but now there's that Zacian. So no, I don't think we're going to see any Swords Dance coming out from there. We are going to see the Max Steel Spike onto the Tornadus. It is not enough to get the KO, doing a huge amount of damage. We are going to see that defense boost come out. The Dialga is also nerfed. That is important to note. Here is that Max Quake. We're going to see how much damage this Dialga is going to get off here on this Kartana. Is still a decent amount, up to half HP. Oh, critical hit.
Yeah, that would be why it's done a lot of damage there. You have seen the Kartanas tend to opt away from Assault Vest at this point. We saw Gabriel Agatis that was running the Life Orb in the NIAC. It didn't seem like there was Life Orb activation from that Kartana there, so could potentially be the White Herb, which is the other item of choice that the Kartanas have started to run over the Assault Vest as well. But it still could be. That was a critical hit coming out from Dialga after all. But it doesn't have a Life Orb on the Dialga, so probably is not going to be the Assault Vest on the Kartana. Very nice switch in for the Zacian there. Very, very bulky Tornadus coming out from Dov's side of the field, able to survive that Steel Spike. That is definitely a bulky Tornadus, but it's interesting choice going for the Taunt, given that it is a bulky Tornadus, because you would assume that you underspeed the opposing Tornadus, which would have meant they would have got their Tailwind first after you got the Taunt off. And now you can switch in your Tornadus once again for the Zacian, probably expecting a Max Quake coming out from the Dialga, and then you'll be able to match this Tailwind that Dov has just set himself.
Wow, really great reads all around. You're going to see the Max Steel Spike come in on the Tornadus. It is going to get hit, taking a huge chunk of damage, but not enough to knock it out. So, you know, we are going to see those speeds continue to come into play. This Tornadus continue to be a little bit annoying here. We're going to see that Max Airstream trying to get a bit more speed control. Going to finish off that Tornadus right here onto the field, and as well get that speed boost going right here. So yeah, really interesting turns coming into play. Goodbye to that little Tornadus.
Yeah, really nicely timed as well, getting that Tornadus in. Very nicely gone for the Steel Spike instead of that Max Quake into the Zacian. It did cover that switch into the Tornadus, but now it's able to survive. You can just go for a Tailwind on this turn, now that the Taunt has been taken care of from the Tornadus on Dov's side of the field. But you won't be able to go for it this turn if the Incineroar is coming in to get that Fake Out pressure once again onto the opposing Tornadus, and it is going to be able to intimidate that Kartana as well back down to neutral. So you've used up the Dynamax turns of the Dialga here. You've still got one more left with the Kartana, and now it has gone for an Airstream. Even though there is Tailwind on Dov's side of the field, the Incineroar is probably not going to be able to outspeed that Kartana. It does tend to be trained, if it is able to outspeed a Kartana, to only just outspeed a Kartana, but then if you've got the +1, the Kartana does get that speed advantage once again. We saw that it was a critical hit at Max Quake that did that much damage to the Kartana, so it should be able to shrug off whatever the Dialga will want to go for and respond back with one more Max move. So very nicely stalled out of that one extra turn of the Dynamax for Luis's side of the field. That means that they get to go for one more Max move here. Probably going to be some kind of Max Knuckle coming out into either the Incineroar or Dialga. Both of them are weak to it. If the Tornadus does carry Protect, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes for it this turn, because then it would be able to guarantee the Tailwind next turn. But no Protects coming out. Fake Out is going to put a stop to that Tailwind.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is that Max Knuckle going to do a ton of damage. It's going to do a bit under half HP right there. So bulky Incineroar. We're going to see that attack go up. Very curious to see how much damage this Dialga can do now that it doesn't have the Dynamax. We are going to see the Power Gem come out here. Good move going for that Tornadus there because of how nerfed it is attack-wise. So that is going to take out the Tornadus, fainting it. And yeah, what a play.
Yeah, it's going to take care of the Tailwinds pretty nicely, and that is the final turn of Dynamax for the Kartana, so no more Airstreams. But it did outspeed the Dialga and the Incineroar, even only at +1, so it doesn't even matter that Luis is not going to be matching the Tailwinds here. You get to bring in the Incineroar, get to click Fake Out into one of them, and get to click a +1 Sacred Sword into the other one. We saw that it did just under half into the Incineroar. That means that the +1 Sacred Sword will be enough to knock out the opposing Incineroar. Be pretty close on the Dialga. It's going to be able to ignore the Steel Spike boost that it did get previously, now that it is going for Sacred Sword instead of Max Knuckle. So that would be actually stronger than the Max Knuckle would have been. Could potentially knock out this Dialga. If you're not sure about that, you could probably just go for the Fake Out into the Dialga, the Sacred Sword into the Incineroar. There is nothing really that Dov can do to stop that, but it's going to be an Aerial Ace instead.
Oh, interesting play right here. And the berry is revealed, coming in, restoring that HP. There's that Citrus Berry. And oh, the flinch! Never fun to see that. And we are going to see the Flare Blitz come out from the Incineroar onto the Kartana. It is enough to get the knockout. Kartana is off the field.
Yeah, if that Incineroar had turned into a Shedinja, that would have been an amazing play. But it did not, I'm afraid. It did stay on the field, and now the Kartana has been dropped. Even if it did switch into a Shedinja, you weren't losing anything by going for the Fake Out into the Dialga and the Sacred Sword into the Incineroar. All that would have happened is no damage that turn apart from the Fake Outs. So you'd then be able to go for the Aerial Ace into the Shedinja, or the Sacred Sword into the Dialga, or the Sacred Sword into the Shedinja if you're expecting the Ally Switch. But now the Zacian is going to be able to hit the field. We still haven't seen the final Pokemon. That might have been why the Aerial Ace came out from the Kartana, because you may not be bringing the Kyogre to this match. You could very easily bring the Shedinja. Lots of players do opt to bring Shedinja against opposing Zacian Kyogre teams because the two restricteds can't hit the Shedinja. You have to rely on the partners. But the Incineroar is once again not switching out here, and the Dialga is just going to be able to get that Earth Power into the Zacian. That's some decent chip.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are going to see the Sacred Sword come out into the Dialga, finishing it off. So powerful. There's a reason why we see Zacian on so many teams out here, and that is the reason. And there's that Flare Blitz coming out onto the Zacian. Isn't enough to get the knockout.
Ooh.
It is not. That's going to be huge. Incineroar taking that recoil, and then we are going to see the opposing Incineroar come in with that Darkest Lariat. It's going to hit in, and we're going to see if that's going to be enough. It is not. It is, and there goes the Tailwind for that final turn. And we do see Kyogre is the last Pokemon in the back who's going to come out play.
Yeah, that's going to be a really nice position for the Kyogre now. If the Zacian does carry Play Rough, then it is going to potentially be enough on the Kyogre, depending on how that Kyogre is trained. If it doesn't carry Play Rough, then there's going to be no chance to deal with this Kyogre, and it would be able to respond back with a Water Spout / an Origin Pulse if you want to avoid the potential super low HP Kyogre going for a Water Spout. It could be a little bit risky going for the Origin Pulse. We'll see how bulky the Kyogre is as well, and it is going to be opting for the Protect, so that might indicate it's not a very bulky one.
Right, and there is the Play Rough. Crucial information there, especially going into this game. And we're going to see the Darkest Lariat come out. And it's going to be targeting that Incineroar, finishing it off. There it goes. And it took a little bit, but we got that Incineroar off the field. So we're learning so much going into this game about the movesets. And even if, you know, this is looking one way, it's definitely good to get as much information you can going into the next match.
It definitely is. We saw the Tailwind expire, so we saw the Incineroar on Dov's side of the field move first, but Incineroar on the other side move first this time, and that is enough to survive the Play Rough from the opposing Zacian. Origin Pulse does connect with both. That is going to knock out both of the Pokemon on Luis' side of the field. So Dov just squeaking through with that survival, able to take that game one.
Oh, incredible play. It just goes to show play till the very, very end, and the way you EV train your Pokemon can really come and make or break. So GG's, what a fantastic game one. It really came down to if you were able to get that final knockout or not.
Yeah, and Origin Pulse is always a nail biter to click. You can't go for the Water Spout there. That probably is not enough to KO the Zacian. Even though it was in the reds, down to 21 HP, probably not enough to KO the Zacian. So you do need to risk the Origin Pulse there. Unfortunately for Dov, it did connect. So I think the very crucial turn was that Aerial Ace into the opposing Incineroar. You can see that Luis's skill in going for that prediction. The reason you're going for an Aerial Ace into Incineroar is you are predicting a Shedinja to switch into that slot. So we can see the caliber of play coming out there already. Not quite catching that prediction, unfortunately. There was a Sacred Sword into that Incineroar. The Kartana would have been in a very, very strong position because it would have been at +1 speed. It would have been outspeeding everything. after the Tailwind had expired, you could just go for a Leaf Blade into the opposing Kyogre, and with the +2 at that point, would have easily knocked out the Kyogre, or Sacred Sword into the Dialga would have knocked it out as well. So very nice to see that prediction come out, and unfortunately not paying off in that game, but being able to see a player like that young be able to go for a play that big, very, very strong play coming out from Luis.
Absolutely. And so really excited to get into this game too and see how our players are going to adjust. But I'm hoping to see that Shedinja as well. And we're going to see the leads coming out. We've got Landers and Kartana this go around, and Tornadus and Dialga coming out to play. So we're going to see that Intimidate come out. Not going to be fun on that Dialga, as well as the pressure that Tornadus tends to have with that Tailwind, with that taunt. Jamie, how you feeling?
Yeah, Landorus is going to do much better against the opposing Dialga. We didn't see the Kyogre hit the field for a long time, so the Landorus would be pretty safe in this early game because it's going to match up much better into the Dialga because it can go for the Max Quakes. If you get the Max Quake, it's going to do both massive damage and boost your special defenses, so you'll be able to take on the opposing Dialga a lot better. And we're seeing Luis go for that turn 1 Dynamax this time, not trying to stall out the turns to be able to match the Dialga in the future, just going on the offensive immediately with that Landorus.
Yeah, sometimes you realize, okay, it's time to go. And yeah, so much pressure on the field. But we are going to see that Dynamax matched right here, which I think is a really great play. We're going to see that Dialga come out, and it's going to be a big Landorus versus Dialga game. Both very hyper-offensive stances right here. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how this is going to play out, who's targeting where. And oh, it's just about to go down right here. So we've got the Tailwind coming out that's going to definitely increase the speed, and there's that Max Wormwind coming out. It is going to be targeting Landorus. Bit of information here. How much damage is it going to do? About half, a little above half damage right here. That is going to lower the attack, which is going to nerf Landorus being a physical attacker right here, as well as that Kartana. Sacred Sword going to come out onto the Dialga, not doing that much, especially after that debuff. We're going to see the Max Rockfall come to play as well onto that Tornadus. Is it going to do enough to knock it out? It's just going to be shy of a KO right there, Jamie.
Yeah, that Max Wormwind is pretty important. They're going to be able to allow the Tornadus to survive that attack because the Sandstorm even wasn't enough as well. If it would have just been the regular Focus Sash variant, that combination of attacks would have been enough into the Tornadus. But because of that attack drop into the Landorus, because it was not going to be carrying the White Herb there, then it's just not going to be doing enough damage to the opposing Tornadus. And now the Tornadus gets to stick around. If it's carrying Icy Wind, then you get to go for an Icy Wind into the opposing Landorus and the Tornadus that switched in as well.
We are going to see the Max Guard come out from the Landorus, and there's the Hurricane, but the Hurricane is going to go into the Tornadus, doing a ton of damage, and there's the confusion. Oh, never fun to see. A beautiful Max Guard coming in from that Landorus, protecting against another Max Wormwind. Definitely don't want to keep getting those attack drops. Not fun at all. We are going to get that Sandstorm chip damage, but both Tornaduses are hanging onto the field. Looks like that Tornadus on Dov's side is going to have about one more turn before that Sandstorm knocks it out if it isn't targeted.
Yeah, and we've seen the Tornadus does carry Taunt on Dov's side of the field, so now the Tailwind is on Dov's side of the field, you get to guarantee this Taunt goes off into the opposing Tornadus first, so it cannot set that Tailwind, and now you just get to go for the Max Wormwind before that Max Quake can come out from the Landorus.
It was just not enough to get the KO, still hanging on. Another huge attack drop. Oh, it was so close right there. And then we were going to see this Max Quake. Very curious to see how much damage this is going to do going into this Dialga. Despite being super effective, not going to do that much damage. Still hanging in there despite being super effective. We're going to see that Spadef increase. But yeah, this Landorus is definitely feeling the heat from those damage drops. The Sandstorm going to take out that Tornadus off the field and allow for a clean switch in.
You see why the White Herb is used so much on Landorus, because as soon as you start to get those attack drops, it's really not doing the damage, and you needed it to do that damage against the opposing Dialga, because now the Kyogre's coming in Tailwinds that can't be matched by the Tornadus because that is still taunted. You just get to click Water Spout with your Kyogre, and there's nothing that Luis can do to stop that. If you switch in your Kartana, it's going to take a huge amount of damage still because it's not going to be able to get the Dynamax or anything. It's going to be taking a huge amount of damage. And then you've got to contend with the Dialga just following up and doing a little bit of extra chips. So this is a really, really strong position coming out for Dov now. They just get to blast through with the Kyogre. There's not really anything that Luis can do to stop it. If they've got the Incineroar waiting in the back, they can maybe stall out a turn of the Tailwind with the Fake Outs. But if you don't have the Incineroar, you've probably got the Zacian. that means that you've got to try and protect around this Tailwinds. Tornados don't always carry Protect. Some of them run Swords Dance instead. If it does carry Protect, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see it coming out, but probably no Protects coming out from either of those Pokemon. They are just going to drop to this Water Spout.
Yeah, and I think this is the right play to make here because it would be a really risky switch. You know, again, if you don't have the full HP to kind of carry out those final turns, you know, when they're that weak, they're only going to have one turn to finish the job. And so letting both those Pokemon go down is kind of the only thing you can do in this position right here. So we are going to see the Kartana come back out at full HP, and then we are going to see the Incineroar come out. So a nice combo here, but Dov does have a very strong and commanding position. Incineroar definitely doesn't like to see that Kyogre right there. So Jamie, what do you think going into this final couple of turns?
Yeah, you needed the Incineroar over the Zacian for sure, because you need some kind of fake out pressure to be able to stall out the Tailwinds, but that might not be enough at this point, because you've still got to contend with the Dialga that can still do some very nice damage as well. Yeah, the Kyogre gets to go for Protect this turn. That means you can stall out the fake out and the Leaf Blade that could go into the Kyogre. At least the fake out went into the Kyogre. We'll have to see if there was the follow-up, or it's the Sacred Sword, and that's a very nice call from Luis, getting that Sacred Sword into the Dialga. Oh, but not enough.
Very nice play, but not enough to get the KO. That is so unfortunate. It was a fantastic play. We are going to see the Dialga target that Kartana, but Kartana's still hanging in there. Decently bulky Pokemon right here. And yeah, that was a very smart play. Just 7 HP away from that victory. Looks like there is a potential swap being considered right now onto the field. And yeah, this is tricky.
Yeah, we did just see that Incineroar is waiting in the back for Dov. That would have actually been better for Dov if the Dialga went down that turn. You get to bring in the Incineroar, click Fake Out on Water Spout, and there is nothing that can be done about it. Now you need to switch out your Kyogre, like we're seeing here, for the switch into the Incineroar, and then you'll be able to go for the Fake Out Water Spout next turn, assuming the Dialga does get KO'd. So you actually do want your Dialga to get KO'd this turn if you are on Dov's side of the field. And if not, then you still get to do some massive damage with the Earth Power. But getting the Incineroar against the opposing Incineroar and the Kartana, especially a Leaf Blade switch in, is going to take that very comfortably.
Oh yeah, that did practically nothing. We're going to see that Earth Power come in to try and finish that Kartana. It is not enough. We are going to see the Darkest Lariat come out to play onto this Dialga. It is going to finish it off right here, so Kyogre is going to be able to come back out now. So we are getting that nice pivoting, albeit it took an extra turn to do so. And so Kyogre is going to very comfortably come back out here, and yeah, Dov's in a really solid position.
Yeah, you just click Fake Out Water Spout. There is nothing that can be done. The only thing, I guess, would be a Passion Berry coming up the Incineroar, maybe a Focus Sash, but even then, that doesn't particularly matter. And you would need the Kartana to be carrying Protect as well, and it just doesn't tend to do that. It might very well be Assault Vest with the damage it was taking from the Earth Power. Maybe the critical hits like put some of the damage calcs out of whack there. But yeah, the Fake Out is just even enough onto the Kartana. And opting for Origin Pulse here, interesting decision. You could have just gone for the Water Spout, but finishing off in style does connect with the Origin Pulse and is going to take out that Incineroar very, very easily and take the set for Dov.
And there you have it. GG's. What? That was a really interesting game right there because there were so many critical points where it just a little bit more damage here or just the way they were trained, and that game could have gone a completely different way. GG's to both Dov and Luis. Fantastic showcase of gameplay and skill, and really, I mean, especially in that game one, it was really neck and neck the entire time, and then going into this game two, Dov was able to get that final positioning, but wow, what an incredible showcase from both players.
It definitely was. Some very nice call coming out from both players. The Landorus going for the Rockfall into the Tornadus would have been a very good turn one if it would have KO'd the Tornadus, but the combination of being bulky and the Max Wormwind with no White Turb coming out from the Landorus meant that was not strong enough, and then it was just completely on the back foot from there because you get Tailwind on Dov's side of the field, you do not get Tailwind on Luis' side of the field because now you can be taunted. You needed to really get that Max Quake going into the opposing Dialga so that you get the massive damage before you put down to +2. We saw how little it did to the Dialga when it was at -2, so yeah, probably needs to go on the offensive a bit more into the opposing Dialga, but a nice call to run that Tornadus very bulky because it surviving that Rockfall was very, very crucial in that game too.
Very clutch. Absolutely. So with that will give Dov's Team Israel the victory for this set. So Jamie, we'll be back shortly with our next set.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. It will be Belgium versus Peru. So stay tuned for that.